Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 242. It's aZird. It's aZlane. It's aZlane. It's aZaaZ. Recorded on March 17th, 2023 from Zenatta Consulting. I'm Brett Martin.
I'm Tyler Colt, and we promise that name will make sense later.
Yes. It's aZird. It's aZlane. It's aZaaZ. You know, I wrote that and I still couldn't pronounce it properly. I have no idea why.
It's how it goes sometimes.
Well, how's your week going, buddy?
Oh, pretty good. Headed into the nice season here, so hopefully get some time outside this weekend. How about you?
Good. You know, I shaved today. Did something. I got something accomplished. It's always a good thing. Just do one thing during the week.
Take the wins where we get them.
Yeah, do what I can. You know, anyway. All right. Enough of that. Let us get right into the news because there is... Actually, no. Let's get into some announcements events. We've been talking about this for about a month now, but we have moved all the announcements and events over to club.zenatta. We are on our bright, shiny, new little community software that we are loving so much. So if you actually just go to club.zenatta.com, right there on the homepage, you will see a list of upcoming events on a little side widget. And if you scroll down a little bit, you can actually break down the events by, hey, you just want to look at what's going on over at Zenatta. Which, by the way, we have our Zoho Desk 2023 full product tutorial coming up here on March 21st. That's next week. We're not going to be doing it, Tyler. It's going to be Josh and Greg. It's going to be exciting.
So Josh and Greg actually have kind of used Zoho Desk a lot more internally for Zenatta to kind of build out some processes and procedures. So we thought tap in the real experts for this one.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very good. And then Zoho, with all their events, and they've been kind of really adding a lot of events that are coming in. I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but there's a summary email that are you getting the summary email that comes from Club Z now?
Summary. I also got an event reminder, which was kind of nice.
Yeah. And I love it. But the summary is like, hey, here are the top stories. Here are the new events that was added. Here's what's going on. So if you are a subscriber to the to our Club Z, you kind of get everything that's happening. And also over on Club Z, we've moved all of the news. So the news that we're doing during the week, basically all these shows we kind of drop in here in real time. All the stories we drop in here on real time. So if you want to read the articles before we talk about them, they're all here. There's a lot of these articles. We put them in the newsletter, but we don't necessarily cover them here. So kind of get the early access to the latest news. And as always, just head into the general discussion and you can drop us, have whatever questions you have. The community will hopefully help answer them. And then I guess I'd like to point out one more thing, the Q&A. So if you got any questions that you want answered, drop them in here and we will get right to them. And with that, let us get into the news because we've got a lot to cover this week. All right, Tyler, we will start off with WorkDrive 4.0 has been dropped. This is part one, so I imagine we'll be discussing part two of this next week. It's crazy. I mean, I know it was a year ago, evidently, we were talking about, they started doing dot releases on these things. So WorkDrive 3.0, I guess, was a year ago. This is one of those applications that during the week, the whole WorkDrive and the whole Office suite is... quite a bit of work goes into it, and they are constantly improving it and just, leaps and bounds over a lot of the other Office software and what they're doing out there. Really solid group, really solid applications. And so there's a whole bunch of updates here. A lot
of them are kind of around data management, data administration, right? Some of the share rules, being able to do OTP authentication if you're doing an external link. So kind of building in some more external collaboration. But one of the ones I want to call attention to is actually up at the top. It's one of the first things they wrote here, which is WorkDrive Snap. Is that what they're calling it?
WorkDrive Snap.
Great. It's great. So if you've used something like Loom, right, where you can quickly just click two buttons, start a screen share, and then save it, WorkDrive Snap will do that. It doesn't have kind of like the editing tools. So if you wanted to cut out the middle 30 seconds of a Loom video, you can do that. And you can't do it quite yet with Snap, but we all kind of tested this internally and it's very good. it's very, very good. So if you're already on WorkDrive and you record lots of these little quick snippet videos and maybe you don't need that ability to edit them, it's a great option. The process is pretty quick, loads it right into whatever folder you started it from. So really good implementation, honestly, for like a first crack at like a tool like this. Looks great.
So is the only thing it's missing is, I mean, we'd leave Loom if it wasn't for the quick editing.
Yeah, it's just the quick edits that you can do in there. There's some things in Loom that the commenting, reactions, doesn't have all those. We don't care about all those features.
Right.
So yeah, great thing to add. And I would imagine they're going to keep tweaking and updating there.
That would be nice. Very
Absolutely.
Nice. Yeah, and there's so much they're doing interesting things here too. I mean, so you can drop your face in. There's a lot to this. Yeah. So anyway, good job, team. There's a lot here. I suggest you read the article. One of the things they've really been doing is within files, the metadata, the tagging, all of those kind of things. So you can really kind of organize all of your documents, spreadsheets, PowerPoints, and easily find them and search on them. You don't even necessarily, you can use folders, but with all their metadata and tagging, the ability to find what you're looking for, they've done a really nice job on it. So, and I guess you've got Bigin's file cabinet is now going to be powered by WorkDrive. So Bigin, I guess, has a product called File Cabinet. And it's going to be basically part of WorkDrive.
News to me, but always nice, right? The more we can leverage WorkDrive and other apps, the better, right? So why not?
Yep. And sharing WorkDrive files directly into Click. Click has become the central hub. We always talk about CRM as kind of the hub, and it really is the hub for a lot of the applications. But man, Click, from a communication standpoint and quickly being able to share files, share videos, share everything. They've really just done a great job there. So anyway, a whole bunch here, and this is just part one. So head over to Zenatta.com, click on the CRM Zen Show, find this article, go through it, or just subscribe to our newsletter, and it'll be delivered to your inbox on Monday. Moving along, 1 million installs of Zoho in the Zoho marketplace. If you are unfamiliar, marketplace.zoho.com. That is where you can get all of your extensions written by Zoho, written by third-party developers that can enhance a lot of Zoho applications. And so it's a good place to kind of go if you're looking to connect something. There's this little missing piece. You're asking yourself, I wonder if I can do this. If you go to Marketplace and you do a search, there's a good chance you will be able to. And for Zoho, we've talked about it a lot, but it's funny where they're going to be doing the Desk webinar coming up here. And Zoho Desk is really interesting as it relates to the marketplace, because there's a lot of things that I would think are really core to Zoho Desk that aren't actually in the app, and you have got to go to the marketplace and install them to have them work. So worth taking a look at.
Absolutely. Yeah, a lot of times what we find is when someone wants something custom built, first thing we do is check Marketplace, right? Is there already something with good reviews that solves this problem? And a lot of times there is, right? If it's a commonly used application, then you always want to start here because it could just save you a ton of money on custom development.
Absolutely. All right, and moving on to the news, we're going to talk a little bit. There's some more CRM early access news that dropped this week. We do our year-end review show every year, and the team said, hey, as we go through the year, if you could do us a favor and just start making a note while we're doing the shows, whether or not things are notable or major. You kind of flag this one as pretty notable. This is, you can now do
almost borderline major. The only reason it's not major is that you could technically do this in Flow because there's been a trigger there, but man, it's way better to do it just with the workflow. So there's essentially the ability to trigger an automated action based on a note being taken in your CRM, right? And so there's a ton of different use cases for this. An example is maybe you want to have like a last touch date on a lead, and you can automate that when a task is completed, we stamp that date, and a call and a meeting. But what if a note needs to count as a touch, right? Then we'd have to carve that out separately and do it inside of Zoho Flow just to kind of accommodate that. So just being able to do this natively in a workflow is hugely valuable. This is one that I know is a very commonly requested feature.
Yeah. Pretty slick. Pretty slick. And another early release feature is you can now send SMS notifications from Zoho CRM. A lot of you people might be going, but hey, wait, I can already do that. Yes, you can, with a whole bunch of third-party SMS applications that are out there, whether it's Smooth Messenger. What's the other big one, Tyler?
I mean, there's a Ring Central plugin, Twilio, Just Call.
SMS Magic.
Yeah, SMS Magic.
Magic's another one. Yeah, I mean, pretty much any of the top SMS plugins, or Twilio or whatever, you have been able to do this. But now you can do it using Zoho's Zoho SMS, which they are releasing. This is really early stage. They say it's pre-use. It's not sending caller IDs. There's a whole bunch of things going on here, but Zoho is basically pushing forward with their own SMS solution and dropping that in. I don't know if this is still Twilio based or not, Tyler.
Probably, right? I would assuming they're going to build it into like their CRM voice option, which kind of replaced Twilio. So I would have to bet it's running in Twilio on the back end.
All right. And then moving on with another early access, this is voice-based forecast analysis for Zoho CRM. By voice, this is voice of the customer, not actual audio voice. And basically, this is just using Zia to go through and filter and determine customer sentiment. Am I correct?
Yep, exactly. So it's kind of looking at combining your customer sentiment with your forecasting. So you might be able to weight, like, if you're using expected value, well, maybe that expected value could vary by 5% up or down based on the sentiment of the emails that are going back and forth, right? So it's just another kind of layer to build into the existing forecasting tool within CRM.
So I send out a proposal. The person writes back, wow, this proposal sucks, but I'll look at it anyway. Is it going to move that deal to say you're probably not going to close it? Is that what?
Yep, it's essentially affecting that like forecasted value, right?
To change the potential close rate on that.
If someone said your proposal has 500 typos in it, it's going to assume that they're going to be less likely to close, right?
So I always feel pretty good when someone says, this sucks, but I'll take a look anyway. I put that in the gut feeling. I think I'm going to get this one. It's always good to be an optimistic sales guy. Otherwise, just life is gloom and doom, baby. And then moving on, you are now have call transcription and intelligence. This is pretty cool. So it is using Google's API to transcribe an audio file. And basically, the setup is on the back end of Zoho. So there's an entire section under settings called communication, and it's going to now call transcription. And when you set this up, it's going to create a custom field in the module for that call transcription file. And if there's a file in there, it's transcribing it. Now, I don't know how you're going to get the file there, Tyler. We haven't played with this yet, but
guess a lot of these, depending on what VoIP provider, a lot of them do kind of provide that little embedded voice recording option. Right. So it seems like you don't need to upload for most of them, and it should just be working in the background. Now, like the interesting thing for us, and we were kind of talking about this before, is, is there any way to run a report on these? Can I look for certain words that might show up in transcriptions? And I'm assuming that stuff is on the roadmap, but just kind of having the ability, right, to be able to turn this on if it's a need and then build it into, features that will come out down the line. It's going to be pretty slick.
Yeah. And it is running, I don't think Zoho's charging you this. It's using the Google API. So my guess is you're getting that yourself.
Probably need an account with them separately, unless Zoho's going to manage.
Yeah, it's usually how it works. You have to set up your Google account, give me a credit card, and it's basically charging this way. So it looks like about 2.5 cents a minute for the transcription services, which isn't horrible. What was that? We had a transcription service using for a long time. What was it called?
Fireflies. Yeah, Fireflies. They were $20 a month, though, so they must have just been hemorrhaging money doing what they were doing.
Yeah, 25. I mean, they're still out there, but it was interesting. I mean, it did this exactly the same thing, but I don't know if they limited you or not. I mean, they were doing you could transcribe a lot of data. I think their unlimited plan was a little more than that. That was interesting, though, because they really, they were doing kind of that whole AI part, which is what they say they're doing here, where they were, breaking it down. Like they actually would give you your to-do list at the end, right?
Yeah.
Like if you said during the call, okay, I'm going to take this as an action item. Okay, I'll add that to the to-do. It would do its very best to have listened to the whole call and give you what it thought your action items were at the end of that call.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're attempting to do something like that here,
Yeah.
but this is more sentiment based is all they're giving you. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's one of
Yeah.
those things, right? And kind of as we talked about in our, webinar for CRM this year, is that they're going to be continually putting out more and more ZIA features. And then for the user side, we just have to know that it's machine learning and it's going to take a little while to get better and better and better. Right. And so
Yeah.
I love seeing these things, even though right out the gate, right, you're going to look at some sentiment and you're going to see some silly stuff, right? You're going to see it misunderstanding sarcasm. You're going to see it not knowing that you have a long relationship with this customer and to read it differently. But give it a year, give it a little while, and this is only going to get better and better.
Yeah. And you are limited to 300 hours of transcription per month, which is not a lot.
Yeah.
If you have a larger organization, because that's per organization. So that could go by pretty quickly. I mean, if you think about us, if you were transcribing all of our stuff and doing it, you've got 25 people on Zoom calls all day long. That's going to go pretty quick, huh?
Yeah, it is.
There you go. All right. Anyway, nice service there. And then moving on. So Zoho has now got an all new email configuration feature. They've got some new enhancements for it. The big one is really around the fact that Microsoft Office 365 no longer supports the basic authentication method for IMAP. What's the basic authentication method? You give it your username and password. Yep. It's now requiring OAuth for IMAP authentication with Google, which is a good thing. Yep. If you are using the new authentication method, which you have to use, and by the way, this makes sense because I've actually had a few people saying it stopped working.
And it's that classic thing, right? Of when you're doing it via the login method and you put a 2FA on Microsoft, that it breaks your IMAP, right? So this is the way these things should be done now that these are opening up. And so they're doing it first for Microsoft. I'm sure hopefully Google is not far behind. We use Google ourselves, so I'd love to switch over. Interestingly, Brett, you were highlighting Zoho Mail has not been moved over to this new method yet.
No.
So hopefully that's not far behind as well. But
because
the nice thing about this is that it moves towards solving one of the biggest pain points for people that are using really any CRM,
which is,
I've got a user, they've been working sales for a year, they leave the company, I turn off their account, all their emails are gone. Right. And so now essentially what you're going to be able to do is actually pull a backup of those emails when you're going to offboard, which will store them permanently inside of CRM. That's just a huge solve, right? That's one of those issues that's just been unsolvable for a really long time. So big shout out to Zoho getting on this one. This is a huge high value update that I'm excited to see happening.
And they don't say it, but they do. So they said, we've introduced a backup option for IMAP users with this new configuration, referring to the configuration for Microsoft up top. So really, we've introduced a backup option for Office 365 IMAP users using OAuth authentication, which is going to allow you to do the backup of the email. So like you say, the sooner the better for the rest of these, And then some really odd stuff around POP3 users. If you aren't familiar, there's several different ways you can pull email. Almost everybody uses IMAP. When you do POP3, your email basically lives in you got it on your phone, you've got it on your iPad, you've got it on your laptop, you've got it on your desktop. You read an email on your desktop, it doesn't change anything anywhere else. And vice versa. That's where IMAP comes in handy. When you move an email to a folder on one device, it moves it to on all the other devices. So you don't see a lot of people using POP3 anymore. But if you are, they've now got sales inbox support. That's a whole nother conversation we can have. We'll have it real briefly. Sales inbox is a tool that comes with Zoho CRM where you could theoretically use it as your email client. And it could theoretically be amazing. But they have done nothing to that application in 6 years or 7 years, and it just sits there. And I just so much could be done with that. I would live in Sales Inbox. When it first came out, I thought this was the be-all end-all. My email client is for, because it breaks things down. Like it kind of organizes them to your CRM life. Like, hey, these people are actually contacts in your CRM. These emails are for deals you've got going on right now.
Yeah.
This is for leads that you're working. And it gave you a really nice sort, and it has a lot of potential. So if you're listening, Zoho,
Don't forget that it exists. It's still there.
Yes.
It could use some love.
So a lot of support that you didn't have for Pop 3 that you now have for Pop 3, and some small UI changes. This one's I thought this was here already, but if you're in a contact and you want to see, look at the emails, there's now an all view, which I guess is going to give you.
Oh, that's a big one. That's actually a huge one. I didn't see this in the story. You used to have to look at all emails sent from CRM or all IMapped emails, but you couldn't look at all emails.
Oh, wow.
Regardless of where they were sent.
I missed that.
Yeah, I don't know how I missed that one. That's actually a nice one.
Yep.
But
now, there are things that break this.
This will only work if no one's using Pop and no one's using the Gmail API integration for email, which is an odd limitation, but nice to see if they're adding it nonetheless.
Yes. Anyway, great stuff there. Really major update, quite honestly, across the board. So kudos to the CRM team and their new email features. And then moving on, we've got a revamped UI for groups in CRM. So when you are setting up permissions and security in your CRM and you are putting in people in groups, you now have this nifty new UI where you actually can go through and choose the people. Before, it was kind of this crazy, you had to move everybody over, and there was just a whole bunch of, anyway. This is super, super nice.
Yeah, and you can add them by role or by other group membership, right? So that's the nice one, right? Is you've got 20 sales reps now, 5 of them might leave, and you get 5 new ones. So now you go back in, you add the new 5 one by one. Just being able to do all this stuff by role and through a much cleaner UI makes groups a lot more useful. Because they are one of those tools that sometimes to get the custom data sharing that you need, you kind of have to use groups. Not always, but sometimes you need them. And so being able to use them more intelligently is just going to be a nice quality of life thing.
Yeah. Big week for CRM. And wrapping it up with we're going to wrap it up with Bigin, Zoho's other CRM, which, Tyler, we were talking before the show, they are rolling out, as far as pipeline management goes, the stuff that they're doing in Bigin is just really, really, really good. So now they are offering this thing called connected records, which we actually do in CRM using custom functions to kind of fire all this up. But now you
functions, different pipelines, lookups, but essentially a connected record in Bigin is, let's say you've got 2 pipelines, a sales and an operations. You can set up a workflow and say that once I win a deal in my sales pipeline, create a matching deal in my ops pipeline to carry things through. Connected records basically lets you automate that second operations record is going to connect to the sales one. And now that relationship and interaction is supported for the mobile app as well, which is where I would imagine a huge percent of Bigin users are living, right? Because it's kind of mobile optimized out of the gate.
Very nice. Very, very nice update across the board for Bigin. And it doesn't look like you can create them in the mobile application, because I don't think you can in the mobile app. I don't think you can go ahead and create workflows and things like that, but they are all viewable in the mobile app. So Bigin keeps chugging along. And that is all the news that we have in the world of Zoho for this week. So Tyler, let's talk about our implementation of the week.
Let's do it. Alrighty, so this one's actually built out by Hector on our team. One of our newer developers, I think, just joined this week, just earlier this week or last. And so, I kind of have a tradition internally when a new developer comes on, I like to give them something crazy and just kind of see how they tackle it. So this is one of those crazy ones that I sent Hector's way. So this was a build out here to solve for a very specific problem for a client, in that they have, they provide IT managed services. And they have clients that are on, monthly recurring retainers of support hours. And then we provide that support through Zoho Desk and track time through Zoho Desk time entries. And all's fine and well. And at the end of every month, they can very easily pull a report that gives them an understanding of if someone went over or under on their, hourly support contract. But the tricky thing is that for a day-to-day user, when they open up a ticket, because all that data lives in analytics, it's not obvious to them if that client has enough time to, on their prepaid amounts, to service this ticket. And if they don't, we need to communicate with them, right? And let them know and get an invoice and, so on and so forth. So really our goal was essentially to set up some triggered automations inside of Desk to reach into analytics, review that data about the prepaid hours and the total amount of hours in this cycle, and then notate back onto the ticket essentially where we at, right? Is it okay to proceed on this? So first we need to build a couple reports in analytics that essentially roll up all of those prepaid hours and then all of the billable hours from Desk within the current month, right? Because it's kind of resets every month. Then we set up triggered automations when tickets are created, as well as when timesheets are created or edited, that essentially reach into the analytics data, grab the prepaid hours, get the total hours billed this month so far, right? And figure out where we at. And we broke it down into 3 categories. Basically, less than 75% consumed is going to be, all good. 75 to 99 is what we're calling kind of approaching, which means we can help them with this, but let's communicate to them that they're getting low, right, on their current hourly amounts for this month. And then we have overdrawn, which is any time that it goes above 100%, right? We can kind of notate that and make sure that the rep knows that this client is kind of outside of their monthly service agreement. And then kind of the last thing is that on the first of every month, we run a function that will essentially reset all the tickets back to, good to go, right? Because at that point, the monthly cycle is reset. We can always pull the historical data on the time billings if we need to true up on anything. But effectively for the users at this point, they can consider that the new monthly billing cycle has started and the client is essentially full on hours again for that period of time. So yeah, big shout out to Hector. Great job on this. Not an easy one, right? Whenever we're kind of reaching in and out of analytics to do these types of automations. But it's a really high value one just because it does give those day-to-day users the ability to know if they can safely proceed with billable work based on those retainer agreements.
I love it. Wow, Hector, first week on the job and implementation of the week. You gotta love
That's a big shout out to Hector. Welcome to the team.
Welcome aboard, buddy. Nice job. Are we going to use this internally now too?
Possibly. I think actually Josh kind of has a version of this that he uses in our portal because it'll actually surface the remaining hours for us. We just do it a little differently.
Very, very slick. All right, nice job. And let us talk about our coach share of the week back over on Club Z. Tyler, I run into this on a daily basis. I've got my GPS degrees. I want to convert them to decimals. I don't know what to do. And I just end up at the wrong place. I don't know how it happens. So you
Absolutely.
don't want to end up at the wrong place. You need to be sending the right decimals or degrees. And we all face this. And so Greg solved it for us, the daily dilemma.
Yeah, so this is one of those functions that that we sorted this out for a particular client, right? We didn't just come up with this from our own brains to figure out how to do this. But this is a use case where if you are using like a third-party GPS API, which I actually know we are for a certain customer, right? They are in an industry where they have many different trucks deployed in many different places with GPSs. And we want to essentially be able to ping the API of the GPS provider and get those locations. But there's a lot of different ways to format GPS data. It's kind of what I've come to understand. And this is a way which is, if you look at the code share here, guys, non-trivial, as we like to call it, to convert these over. But it does work and can help you out because you might be working with a provider that wants it one of these ways, right? And if you are, then you have to reformat it or you can't use the API. So big shout out to Greg. This is one of those ones that someone's going to stumble on like a year from now and just be so thankful that it's sitting there. So for the Zoho nerds, check out Club Zenatta. We do these every week and, might solve a problem that you have with one of your projects.
And I want you to know I'm proud of myself because I was really going to go somewhere with this, but I restrained myself. I was not unhinged. I just, I kept it together. So
nice. Great work.
It's good. The therapy is working out, man. It really is.
Court-mandated therapy is working.
It was court-mandated, yes, but we don't need to talk about that. All right, moving on. Let's head over to Zenatta and see what's happening over there. All right. Project management styles. I like this article. I think if I've said it once, I know I've said this 1,000 times to people. The best project management tool is the one that works for you. Period. There are people that like a spreadsheet. There are people that like waterfall. There are people that like sprints. There are so many there, and not, and people will say that, no, you should, depending on what you're doing, this is the one you should use. But I don't even believe in that. I think that there are just certain people, and they have a methodology, and that methodology works for them. Sure, or maybe some better than the other, but we are covering them all. And by the way, you look at these and go, hey, well, Kanban, that can be part of water. Well, of course they can. All of these methodologies, there's combinations and crossovers, but then some of these are kind of standalone. So anyway, this is just a breakdown of all of your various project management styles and kind of talking through them, where they fit in the whole Zoho ecosystem.
Yeah, great write-up for the team. Again, there's lots of different ways to manage projects and tasks inside of Zoho. Oftentimes it just gets into, how do you do it, right? Is this something templated? Is this something custom every time, right? There's a lot of questions that might lead you to choose one method over another. And then it's really just about picking a tool that works for you, right? In terms of, making that all come together.
Very, very, very nice. Nice job there. And Tyler, with that, you did a very nice tip of the week. Let's chat about it.
Alrighty, so yeah, this tip here, we're kind of running through a piece of new functionality within the CRM that I'd actually say Zoho did a pretty darn good job of here for a V1. This is a CPQ functionality inside of a CRM. If you're not familiar, that's CPQ is configure, price, and quote. It's essentially some advanced rules for setting up product co-sale options, as well as custom pricing options for your team to be sending out quotes. So a couple examples we go through here is, if I sell product A, I'm mandated that I must sell product B if the customer's not a reseller. Or if I'm selling to a reseller, which is a field like on the account, I can actually adjust the pricing accordingly based on, brute force values or percent differences. So it's not QuoteWorks, right? Where the entire thing that it does is custom pricing and price lists, but it's pretty darn good. Right. And I think it would actually cover a lot of use cases. The cool thing about it is just the ability to tie it to data on other records. So I can affect the pricing on a quote based on a field on a deal or a field on an account. Right. And those things, there's just tons of use cases for that. Right. You might want to use one SKU, but sell it to distributors, resellers, end users, retail stores, and they might all have different pricing. So either you need to trust your team to remember to change the pricing every time, right? Which most people are going to be good at, but you never know. And you don't want a end user to get a distributor price on something. So just being able to fix a lot of that stuff in rules is pretty slick. I'd recommend taking a look at it if it sounds like that might suit your needs, because it is pretty well put together.
Yeah, it's kind of, this one, it came out, what are we, about 6-8 months into this year?
It went into early access for partners like 6 months back, I think, maybe 8 months back. But just is now getting into early access for customers.
Yeah, it's nice, I have to say. I mean, I just, it's one of those things I didn't expect from Zoho, it's good to see. I mean, like you say, it's not QuoteWorks, but I mean, we're really early into this. And if you're saying, hey, pretty good already, that's a good sign. That's a really good sign.
Yeah, so shout out to Zoho. I know they got a lot of feedback from partners in that early access period, and it seems like they took a lot of that pretty seriously and put out something that I think is a really strong V1.
By the way, I love the new Moss with the signs and everything you've done with that there. We've
finally done away with my green screen. It's
I know the green screen's gone. We got the cool little signs in your Moss hanging there. It looks
all I need is a haircut and I'll look like an actual professional, Brett. So one of these days.
And if you don't already know, please head over to youtube.com/Zenatta. And that is where we keep all of our tips and tricks and webinars and how-tos and you name it, they are all there. And hopefully you will find something that appeals to you. All right, Tyler, with that, let's get to some Q&A. All right, first question. Ready?
Brett, there are no questions, and the reason why is
That's right. That's right. The title of the show now becomes clearly apparent because we are launching a brand new show that will be every single Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and it is aZaaZ. That's Ask Zenatta Anything About Zoho. And rather than Tyler and I, we're going to bring in a cast of experts, Greg, Josh. It'll be rotating. People will be coming in and out, answering your questions. So we're going to collect all the questions from YouTube, all the questions from Club Z, and we are going to basically do a little more. We'll be doing some screen explanations. We're going to kind of go a little deeper. We found that basically doing the CRM Zen Show, we try to keep this show half an hour to 45 minutes, and sometimes we're running an hour, 45 minutes because the Q&As go long. I felt like I think, Tyler, we felt like we were maybe giving some short shrift some of these.
Sometimes we'd get just a really good question, right? But to actually get into the answer could take 5 or 6 minutes. And so we thought it might be best to kind of carve this out and make some space for us to be able to do a little bit more with answering the questions, right? If we decide, hey, let's pull up a screen share and make that workflow, right? We can do that, without kind of making the CRM Zen Show stretch into an hour and a half long production here. We trying to get it more and more focused and targeted to make sure that, you know exactly what you're going to get when you tune in.
Yeah, because before, honestly, sometimes we'd read these questions literally 5 minutes before the show started and have to do some quick research. So now we're actually going to have kind of a pre-production meeting on Mondays or Tuesdays prior to the show, go through everything. We'll kind of clean up some of the questions. That can be a little hard to understand. We're going to take our best guess what the question is and kind of maybe rewrite some of these to make them a little better. But we are really looking forward to it. And massive kudos. I don't know if you noticed the look and feel, but this aZaaZ thing, I said, it's kind of like a kapow or a bam from a comic strip. And then Freddie took that to the next level. And we now have this really, really cool interface. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun, and hopefully you guys will find it really useful. So no Q&A today, but tune in next Wednesday for Volume 1, Episode 1 of aZaaZ.
And again, just huge shout out to Freddie on this. Brett and I oftentimes joke that he and I are pretty bad clients when it comes to the content. We're kind of vague, kind of random sometimes, but Freddie really just ran with this idea of comic books, and I think he used a little bit of AI here and there to fill in a few blanks, and really just did something great. So we're super excited to start this new series.
Right. Absolutely. So in the chat room, I see Praveen asked, is it possible to insert values in a subform using a Deluge script in Zoho CRM? Tune in on Wednesday, Praveen, and we'll have an answer to that question.
Anyway, answer yes, long answer Wednesday.
Yeah. And by the way, this loop, if you're watching us on YouTube and you're seeing this endless loop, you would be, if we were running the audio on this, you would die, because this was actually not a live show. This, of course, was us just making up some stuff so we could have a reel here. But anyway, going to be fantastic. So Tyler, that is a wrap for this episode of the CRM Zen Show. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please head on over to Zenatta.com and click on Book a Meeting, and Tyler and I will be more than happy to chat with you.
Yep, and make sure to jump over to the website where we share full CRM Zen Show episodes, as well as links to all the stories we discussed today. We'd love if you would subscribe to us on our newsletter to get that delivered every single Monday, and subscribe to us here on YouTube, as well as your choice of podcast app. We'll see you next Friday. That's the first outro I've said differently in like a year. Something threw me off, man. That was a weird one.
Amazing. All right, everybody. Have a absolutely fantastic weekend, and we will see you next week. First of all, on Wednesday at aZaaZ, and then Friday for CRM Zen. And don't forget Tuesday for the Zoho Desk webinar. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.